Yes, ma'am.
Marianne, in the same way that, that you designed the Department of Children and the Department of Peace, is there anything floating around in the way of the Department of Planet Earth?
Well, yes, it's supposed to be called the Environmental Protection Agency. So, the Environmental Protection Agency, unfortunately, right now, is headed by an ex-chemical company executive.
Right.
Hello. Before that, it was headed by an ex-oil company executive. So yes, the Environmental Protection Agency is supposed to be the Department of Planet and Earth. It's supposed to be the Department of Entire Ecosystem. What we have, however, is unfortunately, much like the Food and Drug Administration, much like the Centers for Disease Control, much like the Federal Aviation Administration, these agencies, which were set up to advocate for the people, to be vigilant about pushing back against any encroachment by unfettered capitalism, have become instead handmaidens to the same corporate forces that they're supposed to be our watchdogs against should they get out of line. It's outrageous. You know, I remember several years ago, I was visiting a congressman's office in Washington, and a young intern or young staff person said to me, this was about 10 or 15 years ago, and this young staff person said to me, he said, but Ms. Williamson, what do we do about the dual function of these agencies? And I looked at him and I said, what dual function? And he said, well, you know, it's our job to advocate for the people, but it's also our job to advocate for those corporations. I said, no, it's not. And it's really scary that you think it is. I didn't say that last sentence, but I thought to myself, he was working in Congress, and he was a young kid who had really been schooled in the belief, well, we have to do both. No, we don't. FAA is not here to help Boeing. Hello, Boeing Max disaster. The FDA is not here to help big pharmaceutical companies. Hello, Sackler family, predatory big pharma practices. Hello, opioid crisis. Hello, New Hampshire. This is outrageous, and the EPA is not here to make it easier for chemical companies and food companies and big agribusiness and oil companies. And what you have is what we've got. The current administration has gutted the Clean Air Act. They've gutted the Clean Water Act. We have contaminants in our water. We have something like 70,000, and this was before Trump, by the way, the part about the contaminants in our water. We have 70,000 regulated contaminants in our water, but we have 130,000 chemicals that are in commercial use. This is not just Flint. This is not just Newark. This is not just Denmark, South Carolina. This is one of those areas where we're in a little bit of la-la land. And so, and look at what's happened with the Obama administration. Every scientist in the Obama administration had voted to permanently ban a particular pesticide because they knew of the harm that it does to a developing child's brain. One of the first things that the Trump administration did was to overturn the ban after a secret meeting between Scott Pruitt and Dow Chemical Company executives in a hotel room in my native town, Houston. What? This is how corrupt it's all become, ladies and gentlemen. So the EPA, I mean, this is why we've got to replace this president. And the first thing should happen is a world-class environmental scientist or expert who is made the head of the EPA. And we're not here to do dual advocacy. The oil and gas companies, not only that, as I already mentioned to you, last year we gave $26 billion in subsidies to oil and gas. This is really my point being here with you this evening, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't just sort of need to be fixed. Do you know what I'm saying? We need some fundamental break with patterns of the past. We have to make a fundamental decision about what the purpose of government is. You might remember that in the first debate, I said, I don't know why some of you guys are Democrats. You seem to think there's something wrong about helping people. Using government to help people. You know, not all helping is codependency. Not all helping is keeping people from standing on their own 2 feet. You know, it's like they say, it's been said, I think it was Martin Luther King who originally said it. It's one thing to tell someone they have to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, but not if they don't have any boots. Who's next? Yes, ma'am.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
Thank you. What would you do as Madam President? I like that.
That sounds wonderful. After I have painted the Oval Office pink. Oh, she said it again.
In, what would be your first actions on climate?
Oh, on climate.
Yeah, and when we have.
Well, the first thing we have to do, as I said already, we have to appoint a world-class environmental scientist and environmental expert. The whole EPA needs to be filled with environmental experts. And then, this is the deal. We cannot, I said to you before, we need a World War II level mass mobilization. During World War II, we didn't fight it as Democrats and Republicans, we fought it as Americans. We will not be able, now think about this, the day after the inauguration, oil and gas, they'll be right back at it again the next day. And if it is someone that they just think of as oppositional to them, they'll really be at it. It's got to be different. We need to be able to enroll everyone. Many of the, and also we have to remember, there was a time when fossil fuels, it wasn't like now. We wouldn't have fought World War II. We wouldn't have been able to win World War II without fossil fuels. I mean, there was a time when it was legitimate, and certainly we didn't know any better. But many of us are old enough to remember that Jimmy Carter in 1976 put solar panels on top of the White House and talked about how we needed to go green if only we had done it. And in 1980, the first thing Ronald Reagan did was he removed the solar panels. Now, we have to make the Environmental Protection Agency a magnet for world-class environmental scientists. And this is the key, whether it comes to environmental issues or peace-building issues or child issues. We have the experts that we need. We have the people who know what to do. We have the first-class, world-class scientists, people who have the best practices. These are who need to be funded, that's all. So you have to have an EPA which is completely empowered, not only with money, but with a president who is very clear, guys, I have your back. Now, I want to tell you something. This is what I recommend. I recommend we have a referendum. And I'm not going to submit it as legislation, but I'm going to submit it as a referendum. Anybody here under the age of 30? Okay. It'll be your decision. We should have a referendum. And you guys will decide in the referendum. I recommend that you consider, because I think it would be a good idea, if we have a mandatory 1-year national service between the age of 18 and 26. It should be a referendum where you guys get to decide. Now, what that would mean is, let's say you want to be a healer, you want to be a doctor, great, because we need you in these rural hospitals that are closing. You want to be an architect, great, we really need you on these infrastructure projects. We need to develop wind, we need to develop solar, we're going to need a lot of manpower for this. Right? You want to be a teacher? Great, because we really have these underserved schools. We have to get this country going. We have to be able to say to the very entities, and this is the thing, this is where I feel I bring something to the table that I feel is unique, if I may say so. We need the people and the entities and the industries that we recognize have caused industrial scale harm to the earth. We need you, because we need you to now give us industrial scale repair. The people, your people who are doing manufacturing, R&D, research, development, all the creative genius that you're applying one way, we need to apply it to repurpose it. So we need to make a huge transition. We have a huge ship here, ladies and gentlemen. We need to make, it's a big deal to turn a huge ship. We need to move from a war economy to a peace economy. We need to move from a dirty economy to a clean economy. But we need to do this very carefully and very tenderly, because there are many people who are not just greedy bastards, but who are people who just make a living and are afraid that what we're talking about would be taking their jobs away, taking their livelihoods away. And this needs to be done very carefully with great respect. And it has to be done in such a way that we hold that all of these kinds of jobs and industries can be repurposed. You know, I raised my daughter in greater Metro Detroit. And I knew many, many people who worked for the automobile industry, who made it very clear, we would love nothing more than for the CEO of whichever the big three it is to walk in here one day and say, guys, from now on we're going to be world headquarters for the development of clean energy transportation. Yeah. They were just working, they were just guys who had a job. They would have loved nothing more. Same, I've known people who worked at the Livermore Labs in Northern California. They were working on nuclear projects. They weren't happy about that. That was where the grants came from. There are so many people in this country who would love nothing better than to think that their creativity and their skill set was used in the ways that actually heal this country. So that's what leadership should be about. Leadership should not just be about keeping up the opposition, but about enrolling to the best of our ability everybody. Yes, sir.
That's okay. I got a lot more.
Some people in the front.
Oh, okay.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.